Welcome to the Plant Trainers Podcast, where we're helping people improve their quality of life through nutrition and fitness. And now, your hosts, nutrition and wellness coaches, international speakers, Adam and Shoshana Chaim.
Hey, I'm Adam Chaim.
And I'm Shoshana Chaim, and we are
Propelled by Plants. Today we bring to you episode 274, A Prayer for Compassion with Dr. Sailesh Rao.
In today's episode of the Plant Trainers Podcast, we talked to Dr. Sailesh Rao, the executive producer of What the Health, Cowspiracy, and the upcoming documentary, A Prayer for Compassion. Dr. Rao is an extremely calm man, and he's intellectual as well, and he has a strong understanding of strategy and possibility. During our time together, we learned about the work at Climate Healers that he is doing in creating a world of nonviolence, as well as the economic repercussions that can affect a fully vegan world. He gives us an understanding of why we can expect 2026 to see an explosion of the plant-eating people across the nation. We hope you find this intriguing. Make sure to join the conversation happening at Plant Trainers on Facebook and on Instagram around these topics this week.
Dr. Sailesh Rao has over 32 years of professional experience, and he's the founder and executive director of Climate Healers, which is a nonprofit dedicated toward healing the Earth's climate. He is a systems specialist with a PhD in electrical engineering from Stanford University. Dr. Rao worked on the internet communications infrastructure for 20 years after graduation. In 2006, he switched careers and became deeply immersed full-time in the environmental crisis affecting humanity and has been studying how to reverse them and achieve global sustainability from a systems perspective. Dr. Rao is an author and executive producer of several documentaries, including Cowspiracy, What the Health, and now the newest one coming out soon, A Prayer for Compassion. Want to go plant-based without the worry of what to eat to stay healthy, even if you can't find the time to do the research?
Don't worry, here at Plant Trainers, we have you covered. If you're looking to up your athletic game and start training for a race and make sure you know exactly what to eat, Adam can solve your dilemmas and train you to the top of your game.
If you're trying to find the time to batch cook, figure out what to make to be sure you're covering all your nutritional bases, and relieve anxiety with innovative stress techniques, Shoshana can get you feeling confident and in control.
So basically what we're saying is send us an email to info@planttrainers.com and we'll hop on the phone with you. For you, our amazing listeners, this is a complimentary call to get to know you better, see what your goals are, and let you know how we can help. No pressure, but a real connection.
What do you have to lose? A few pounds or less stress? Let's do this. Contact us at info@planttrainers.com. And now for a moment of gratitude.
I'm grateful for the weather. Although it's getting colder and it's something that our family in particular does not really enjoy, we did have the windows open the other day and a cool breeze running through the house. And it felt almost like a cleansing of the house, a cleansing of the energy. And although it was cool, it served its purpose. So I'm grateful for that.
I'm grateful for us going up to the Wishing Well Farm Sanctuary last weekend and just watching our kids interact with the animals and knowing that there are people out there doing all they can to rescue and save the animals on our planet.
Dr. Sailesh Rao, thank you so much for joining us on the Plant Trainers podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
We'd love to know if you have a moment of gratitude to share with us and our listeners.
Yes, I'm grateful for life. I'm grateful for this planet. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for all my friends. I'm grateful for every moment, every breath. Thank you very much.
And that is coming from such a place of abundance. When we could just be grateful for everything that's around us, it's really hard to feel alone in the world. And it's really hard to not really see a place where you can become something greater.
Yes.
So we'd love to hear the story about how you became vegan. Were you born into a vegan lifestyle?
No, I was born into a lacto-vegetarian lifestyle. So I was raised in India and our family was vegetarian. But we were taught that drinking milk is actually good for you. So milk has the status of nectar in our culture. And drinking milk is actually non-violent. So you're really not hurting the cow. And thirdly, it is part of this regenerative agriculture, so therefore it is good for the planet as well. So that's what I was taught. That's how I was raised.
That's what you were taught, but is that actually what is? Is it not violent for the animals?
Yeah, so what I discovered, after, it's been slow realization as it dawned on me that each one of those things are no longer valid. I was 48 years old when I realized that milk is actually the worst food from a health perspective. So it's really not nectar, it's more like poison. And then I realized that milk is probably the cruelest food. So it's no longer ahimsa. It is probably the exact opposite. It's more like himsa, which is cruel. It's a cruel food. And finally, I realized that it is the most destructive food on the planet, for the planet. And that's when I quit. That's when I became vegan. Took a long time to understand that.
Dr. Rao, I gotta stop because you're very calming, and I gotta know if you've always been sound. I mean, we haven't met in person, and I haven't heard you speak anywhere. I've only been talking to you for a few minutes now, but your voice is very calming, and your demeanor seems very relaxed. Have you always been so relaxed and calming as a person?
No. I mean, I'm naturally, I don't have extremes of emotions, to begin with. But it has been much better over the last few years. I've been getting better and better at this.
Because you practice it?
I meditate every day, and I try to understand what my role is. How do I fit? What am I doing? And how does it fit in the larger picture? So I have this inner peace now. So I know that we are on this journey and we are going to get there. We are all part of this journey and we're all going to get there. And so I'm just a tool, an instrument through which things are being done, right? We all are.
And you are an instrument in which much has been done. And we want to talk about climate healers in just a minute, but can we just go back into the I guess I'm going to say 80s and early 90s when you were actually part of the team that was building the internet. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I started working on the internet in the mid-90s. 94 is when I went to the first meetings, and then I was part of that for the next 10 years. So the internet had been around for 20 to 30 years when I started working on it. It really started with the modem technologies of the 60s and 70s. But just as with veganism, internet was sort of distributed. People are doing their own thing. Everyone is working on different aspects of it. And then in the mid-90s, they started the standards meetings. So basically, there were two major groups that were working on two different versions of the internet. One was called the ATM Forum, which was doing more of a packet-based and more of a hierarchical top-down architecture for the internet. And the other one was the Institute for Electrical and Electronic Engineers, IEEE. And they had a standards committee called 802.3, it's Project 802.3. And that was looking at Ethernet, which was another distributed internet mechanism, which was non-hierarchical. It's more decentralized. So I started attending both meetings. I didn't know which was going to win and what the differences were, and very soon I realized that the IEEE and the Ethernet committee was where the internet was going to coalesce around, because it made it so easy for people to connect, and so you can see the market is adopting that very quickly. So the standards meetings, what they did was they put some structure around the internet. They said, okay, here are these experts who are coming together. We are meeting once every 4 months, and we are going to define for you the best practices for every possible connection. How do you do a connection from a switch to a switch? How do you do a connection from a switch to a computer? And how do you do it over fiber? How do you do it over copper? So for each one of these media and each one of the types of connections, we came up with best practices and standards. And that allowed the internet to blossom. So literally, within the next 10 years, we saw the internet go from something that nobody ever very few people had heard of, to something that was a ubiquitous part of our lives.
And did you have a prediction around the internet?
So in 1995, the Newsweek had an article saying the internet was going nowhere. Who is going to read things on the internet? Who's going to buy stuff off the internet? It's going nowhere. And within 10 years, I mean, we didn't predict that it was going to go so fast. So within 10 years, it became, I overheard someone say, I cannot live without the internet.
Well, we're recording this on the internet right now.
Right. So this is the culture shifted. The whole culture shifted, and it was basically an adoption of a technology. And I believe that the adoption was profitable for corporations, and that's why they were putting money into it. And I see the parallels today, but the parallels today with the vegan movement. Just like the vegan movement has been around for 40, 50 years, we don't really have structure around it. We don't have any standards or best practices for how do you create a system or a system of normalized nonviolence, right? We don't have a structure around that. And so this is why I believe that veganism can become normal within the next 8 years if we put our efforts towards creating these best practices and showing people how do we do each one of these. How do we create systems in which humans can participate where nonviolence is normalized.
So in a sense, the same thing that you were doing with the internet in the 90s, creating that communication between people, how to connect and shifting the community. That's what you're doing now with Climate Healers. You're trying to shift the community, shift the way of thinking, getting people to connect on a different level, and having compassion be something that's really the forefront of that. Does that sit with you?
That's correct. Yeah. That's correct, yes.
So you're reusing that experience from the internet to actually make people better.
Yes, there also, see, the motivation for the internet was also very similar. It was about connecting people and helping people understand each other globally, right? That was the motivation. It was a very collegial group that worked on the internet, that was working on the standards meetings, standards bodies. We actually were supposed to come there without any of our corporate hats on. So you come there as individuals, and you do the work without any remuneration. So it's basically all pro bono work that we were doing. And we were supported by who was employing us, right? Because they saw the potential for it to become big.
And it got really big, and it's turned into a way of shrinking the world and bringing everyone together and building communities all over, which I guess was one of the main goals. And you're saying that now we're trying to normalize violence so that there's no more violence. Is that right? And explain to me a little bit more about what Climate Healers is all about, maybe, and then I'll be a little more clear on this, I think.
Right. So Climate Healers was started in 2007, and our main goal was to reverse climate change. I had been working with Al Gore on the Climate Reality Project, and I was getting more and more disillusioned with the way climate change was being framed. It was being framed as something that's, that it's inevitable, and so all we have to do, the best we can do is to prevent it from getting really bad. So it's like, if you're a patient and you go to a doctor with a fever of 1 degree Celsius, and the doctor examines you and he says, I'll make sure it doesn't go over 2 degrees Celsius. Wouldn't you say that there is something wrong with the way the doctor is treating you? Mm-hmm. So that's how I felt, because that's how I felt we were treating the earth, right? It's like, how much more can we increase the fever and not create too much of a problem on earth, right? So, and I was saying, well, why can't we reverse this? Why can't we bring the temperature back to where it was? And then I realized that it's a much bigger problem. It's actually not just about the fever, but also the cancer that the earth has, right? And the cancer is really caused by us, the way we live, the way we consume, the way we are demanding things from the earth and taking it. So it is that system of normalized violence that's causing climate change. When I say normalized violence, just to put that in perspective, we kill 74 billion animals every year for food, land animals. And we kill 1 to 3 trillion sea animals every year for food, or we catch them, for food.
Those are big numbers.
Those are big numbers. In fact, every 4 to 12 hours, we kill more animals than all the humans that ever died in wars throughout human history.
Wow. And some of it is in vain. Most of it's in vain, but some of it's not even making it to the plate, right?
Exactly.
There's so much wastage between, hurting it and slaughtering it and making to the grocery stores and making it to your plate and what you throw it in your refrigerator. Those animals are dying for nothing in a lot of those cases.
There's a lot of waste, but still, just the very fact that we do this, that we are killing at such a rate, and then we wonder, why is the planet dying in front of our eyes? Why are all the wild animals dying in front of our eyes? We have to make the connection. It's our system of normalized violence that's causing the planet to die. So then you ask, how can we live in a way that we are non-violent towards animals? We are non-violent towards other beings. Can we not live in a way like that? They said, of course we can. Of course we can. We have that within us to do that. And that is the transition that we are being called to make. This is why we say, compassion for all life is infinitely sustainable. So if we are looking for sustainability, the foundation of sustainability is compassion. It's not technology, it's compassion.
And then the amount of land that's being used to farm all of these animals, the amount of land that's being used to farm the food that's being used for this animal means that we only have about 7% of the world's land that's actually just there for the sake of being there, that we're not inhabiting in some way. So what effect is that having on our planet, and what does that mean for us?
Well, that's the source of that's the reason for the extinction event that's happening on Earth, right? We killed 52% of all wild animals between 1970 and 2010. They died, or literally we killed them because we were expanding our agriculture. We were taking away land from them, and we were just fishing them out of the ocean and killing them. Or we were pouring all this pesticides and insecticides and all kinds of chemicals into the fresh water, into the rivers and the streams, and we killed all the fish that were there. So we killed 52% of all wild animals between 1970 and 2010. And that became 58% by 2012. And it's not as if in 1970, wild animals were in a pristine condition. In fact, compared to what they were 10,000 years ago, they were down by 60% in 1970. So overall, by 2010, we had killed over 80% of all wild animals, and we are losing about 1.5% per year, something close to 1.2, 1.3% per year. Okay, at that rate, by 2026, we are on track to kill them all off. So this is why we are in this very critical time in human history. The next 8 years are going to determine what it is, what are we made of? Who are we as a species? We have to answer these questions, and we have to answer them correctly so that our children have a future and our grandchildren have a future.
We're taking a short break from this episode to share some very important information with you. Last week, we were at the Wishing Well Farm Sanctuary, and we met the amazing people at Sea Shepherd. So we wanted to let you know a little bit about what they do.
Have you heard of Mexico's vaquita porpoise? With less than 30 individuals, the vaquita is the most endangered marine mammal in the world. The vaquita is in such dire straits because it falls victim to illegal gill nets set to catch another critically endangered species, the totoaba fish. This fish is being heavily poached for its swim bladder to be sold on Asian black markets. Sea Shepherd works in partnership with the Mexican government to protect the vaquita refuge. Many methods to save the vaquita have been tried, but Sea Shepherd has developed the only proven method to date to conserve the small porpoises alive: the removal of illegal fishing gear from its habitat.
You can also be part of the solution. Please learn more and consider donating to Sea Shepherd's mission to protect the oceans at seashepherd.org. You could find the link and an informative video on Operation Milagro V in our show notes at planttrainers.com/274. And now back to the show.
So then, in order to become more compassionate, what are the kinds of things that us as people need to start doing? Everybody just has to become vegan? I don't know if that's going to work across the board.
Well, the vegan movement has to start growing. It has to become more normal. Okay, and it's already happening. You can see an exponential growth in vegans. It's very similar to what I saw in the beginning of the internet. An exponential growth in the use of these. So in the use of plant foods. And over time, this is going to become normal. Veganism is going to become normal. And then others are going to say, hey, I want to join the majority. I don't want to be sitting here in the minority.
Is that going to happen fast enough in the next 8 years?
Absolutely. I really believe it's going to happen. And we have no choice. See, if you look at it from the perspective of the current system, you say, how are we going to do this with all the wars that are happening and all the destruction that's happening? And if you look at how fast, animals are dying and how fast we are killing them, you will feel a sense of despair. This is never going to happen, right? If you look at it, you'll say, it's never going to happen. And I have a very similar story. When I went to the internet meetings in 1995, the chairman of the committee he used to work for, I think, Sun Microsystems. Anyway, he came to me and he said, can you take a look at this 100 megabit standard we're working on and tell us what we need to do differently, because we are having all these returns. People were sending it back saying it's not working very well. So I looked at the standard and I went to the next meeting, which was in January of 1996. And I told them, the standard has some issues because you have a very short scrambler, a lot of things that are wrong in the standard. But on that cable, I can do a gigabit. We can do a gigabit. Make it, 10 times make it run 10 times faster and make it so robust that when it falls back to 100 megabit, it'll work like a charm. They laughed at me. They said, you're crazy. It cannot be done. We are having trouble getting 100 megabit to work, and you're talking about doing 1,000 megabit on that, and you're saying it can be made more robust.
It's like the Henry Ford story, where he wanted the
Exactly.
8-cylinder engine, and they thought he was crazy.
Right. So the same thing happened, So they said, you're nuts. I'll believe it when we see it. In fact, at the end of my talk, everybody laughed. But by the end of 1996, everyone knew that what I was saying was serious, because there were a lot of people coming to our meetings, and they were all saying, yes, it can be done. Yes, it can be done. It's a different technology. It's a different way of doing things. So we were proposing to use digital signal processing and not analog signal processing. So it's a different technology. And everything came together at the right time for this technology to become viable. Okay, we had the right silicon technology at that point. We had all the right algorithms at that point. So we knew what to do. We just had to put it together. Everything came together. And so by 1999, it became a standard. And by 2003, we were selling 150 million units a year. So literally, it just blew up the internet. I mean, just, right? And in 2003, this gentleman who had told me I was dreaming, he told me that they had instances in the lab where they couldn't get 100 megabit to work, but they could get a gigabit to work.
That's bigger, right?
So he said, 1,000 megabit was working, but 100 wasn't working. So he said, you are right. It could be done.
Right.
Right. So we are in the same situation now. So we have all the tools and technologies we need to create a system of normalized nonviolence. So we have the means to create decentralized power structures. So you really don't need to concentrate power in a few individuals anymore, which is the source of a lot of our violence that's happening. Because if you concentrate power in people, then it corrupts. It fundamentally corrupts. We know that we are corruptible. We know that we have flaws. So we shouldn't be creating a system which taps into our flaws, which is what we have today, right? But 100 years ago, Gandhi tried to do something like this, but he couldn't, because the technology wasn't there to allow us to do this. Today, we have all the tools and the technologies coming together at the right time to create decentralized structures like this, a decentralized system like this, in which power is distributed among people and equality is guaranteed, sustainability is guaranteed in the way we live.
So then how do we do this? What tools do we need to begin to use? Because if everybody continues what they're doing right now and everything stays status quo, we will grow as a community towards, violence. But how do we let it bust out? How do we make it explode like the internet did?
It's a very similar. We have to create very similar processes that we did during the internet days. Very similar ways of, we have to get together and start talking about each of these transitions that need to happen. So on our website, we have a list of 40 different transitions that need to happen. And we have a conference that's coming up next month called Vegan World 2026, where we are going to get together and look at each one of these transitions and identify all the questions we have around each of these transitions, and then identify all of the questions that we need to study and address. Basically, we have to have a two-pronged approach. On the one hand, we have to grow the vegan movement in the current system. And when you do that, you're going to create an impetus within the current system to look for alternatives. Because the current system is completely incompatible with veganism. Veganism is going to fundamentally shrink the economy because we are going to release so much land back to nature. I mean, so much of our economic activity is centered around animal foods, okay? Because animal foods use up a lot of land. In fact, 83% of the agricultural land currently is used for growing animal foods, and they only provide 18% of our calories, our energy. So if we go vegan, then a lot of that land will return back to nature automatically. Okay, and unfortunately, along with that, a lot of people are going to be unemployed because 1.5 billion people now work on animal agriculture today. It's not possible to give 1.5 billion people employment in the new vegan economy like that. Okay, so the entire structure of our economy is going to get stressed when people go vegan. This is why the current system tries to discourage veganism. They try to, make it seem like it's weird. It shouldn't be doing that.
Well, because the government and the big companies are all going to lose money.
Right, they're all going to lose money because animal foods are the way they deliver toxic carcinogens and all kinds of things to our bodies. So we fall sick when we eat them, and then when we fall sick, the pharmaceutical companies then make money off of us. So there is a whole economy built around getting us to eat animal foods, convincing us to eat animal foods first, raising the animal foods, getting us to eat them, and then making us fall sick, and then fixing us with pharmaceuticals.
So it's not just the governments that are going to, and the big pharma who's going to lose money. It's everyday workers, right? There's farmers and minimum wage workers and people who work in the pharmacy industry. And you're right, the relocation of jobs is not something that's going to happen overnight, the same way the trees and weeds and branches are going to start growing back.
Right. So basically, the entire system of normalized violence, which is centered around killing animals and then using that to make us sick. So it's a system of death, disease, and destruction is what I call it. So this system is going to collapse. Okay. So you have to have an alternative system in place that allows each one of us to thrive, each one of us to contribute, and allows us to then go out and clean up all the messes that have been created in the current system. See, right now, we don't have any jobs. There are no jobs for cleaning up the ocean. There are no jobs for cleaning up rivers. Right? Governments are not putting money into that. There are no jobs for finding ways of doing things that don't involve toxic effluents. There is no money in it.
Will the government have the money to do that in a world of normalized unviolence? Will the government have enough money to do that if there's no big pharma who's making people sick and earning money and in cahoots with the government? Where's that money going to come from? How are we going to do that?
Well, see, all money is basically agreement between us to honor that piece of paper with a picture of the Queen on it or the picture of a dead president on it. Okay? It's an agreement between us. Really, all the work is being done by human beings. The true wealth is our labor. That's the true wealth that we have available to us. Money is a way to just say, okay, which labor is going to get priority and which one doesn't get priority. And the way we have done it is we have done it as a top-down system, right? So we have a top-down system where a few people control new currency that's being issued. So new currency is issued by banks in the form of loans, and then they ask for that money back, and along with that they ask for interest. So they never issued new currency for the interest, so they only issued currency for the principal. And what that does is it creates competition among us. So we are fighting with each other to see who is going to get the money to give back, right, to the banks. Or we have to grow the economy. So if we don't want to compete with each other, let's just keep growing the economy. And now the economy is now much bigger than what the planet can even support. But we haven't changed our systems. We are still continuing to grow the economy. And so the planet is now reacting in the form of wildfires and hurricanes and floods, all kinds of natural disasters telling us to stop. You're done with this mode of living. So we now have to find a different way of issuing currency that isn't top-down, it's more decentralized, that allows us to then say, okay, I now have 24 hours in a day, I'm going to sleep 8 hours, I'm going to work 8 hours. So what do I use those 8 hours for? How do I allocate my time so that everyone has something to eat, everyone has shelter, and we are cleaning up the planet, and we are regenerating the planet. So we are living in a way that is harmonious with the planet. So it's a different system. And every aspect of this has already been worked on. People have been working on different aspects of this. All we are trying to do with the Vegan World 2026 conference is to try and put some structure around it so that it is all cohesive. It's all going in one direction, right? It's very similar to what we did on the internet. And so we probably have to start meeting every 4 months, every 6 months to look at each of these transitions and to come up with best practices for each one of these transitions over time.
It's all very fascinating. It's very interesting to see how that's going to happen. 8 years ago, we pretty much didn't know what vegan meant, and this whole vegan community around us has exploded over the last 8 years. And to think that in 8 years from now, the possibility of everyone on the planet being vegan is unreal. It's surreal. It would be unbelievably amazing. And right. For the people listening, when we talk about being vegan, we talk about being vegan for our health, for the environment, for the animals, for compassion for each other. What aspect of veganism would be most important for somebody listening to start focusing on immediately so that they could start making change and work towards this huge, overall, massive change in 2026?
Yeah, so, I can tell you a story related to that question. I was in a school in Marrakesh, Morocco, and I was talking to high school kids. And I asked them, so how many of you are vegan? Because they knew I was going to talk about veganism. And there was only one child who raised his hand, right? So one student raised his hand. And then I asked them, so how many of you would deliberately hurt an innocent animal unnecessarily? And no one raised their hands. So I told them, by definition, all of you are already vegan. You're already vegan. But who you are and what you do are not in alignment. So going vegan is about coming home to who you really are. And since each one of us is unique, we are all in different places in this journey. So each one of us has to find our own path. The best the rest of us can do, the best that we can do, is to help people when they ask for help. And to help people when they stumble. And say, when you stumble, please get up and keep going. Keep going. Never give up. Don't give up, because you're coming home to who you really are. We are done with the current job. Okay, we are done with creating all these technologies. And now we are being called to do something much larger than that. We are called to now become the thermostat species for the planet. So we have a different purpose now, right? So it's about maintaining the temperature on Earth without letting it go back to another ice age. That's what we have done for the last 10,000 years. We've actually prevented another ice age from happening, right? So this is just like any other animal. If you look at any other animal, you'll see that at first glance, they may seem like they're destructive to the ecosystem. And then when you step back, you see, well, actually they fit. They do belong in the ecosystem exactly as they are. So what seemed destructive on one level is actually beneficial at another level. And we belong exactly the same way. So we seem destructive on one level, but at a bigger level, when you look, we have done something amazing. We are like the sculptor who has been working on something, and then you see all this waste around the sculptor, but then you don't notice the statue that he's built, right? So that's where we are. We are at the point of recognizing what we have done, understanding what we have done, and then raising our consciousness so that we now are taking on our role within the ecosystems of the planet as the thermostat species.
And you, as a sculptor, have been involved in a really important project called A Prayer for Compassion. Do you want to tell us a little bit of what to expect from that?
Yes, we worked on 3 documentaries. I was the executive producer of 3 documentaries before this. First was called The Human Experiment, which talked about all the chemical pollution of the planet. And then we did Cowspiracy, the Sustainability Secret, which is about all the environmental aspects of veganism and why people should go vegan for the environment. And then we did What the Health, which is about the health, personal health, why we need to go vegan. And the fourth, this one is called A Prayer for Compassion. And the Prayer for Compassion is about love. Why everyone should go vegan? Because of love. We love ourselves. We love the planet. We love animals. We love our children. We love our grandchildren. And because of that, we are going to go vegan. So we look at it from every religious angle, because religion, at its foundation is really about love. The core of every religion is love, is compassion. And so we asked different religious leaders, how do you see veganism within the context of your religion? And so we see that, so we then put that together to show why veganism is compatible with every religion. Almost every religion on the planet. So this is about us coming together around veganism. And rather than looking at the differences between religions, looking at the commonality of all religions, which is love and compassion. So that movie is going to premiere at the Vegan World 2026 conference next month on October 27th.
And then I know that Victoria Moran has been instrumental in that as well. And we've had her on the podcast as well talking about it too. So this should be very big. It should go out there. It should reach lots of people. And I'm sure that it will be shared and there will be more and more, shall we call it, mainstream people or omnivores watching it and being able to maybe make some different decisions in their life going forward.
Yeah, we are hoping that it will do that. We have Victoria Moran is the producer, a co-producer. Thomas Jackson is the co-producer of the movie, and Thomas Jackson will be there at the premiere. We are also going to show it during the Parliament of Religions in Toronto as a side event. So we are working out all the details of that. And so the goal is to get religious leaders to watch the movie and then propagate that to their congregation and talk about compassion from that perspective, compassion for all life from the perspective of their religion.
We're going to put a link to the trailer for that documentary so people could check it out. And then once it's available, we'll get more information about it. Dr. Rao, if people want to get in touch with you, what would be the best place for them to reach out, for them to connect?
The best place would be through email and through our web. I mean, our website has a lot of information on the work that we have done.
Is that climatehealers.com?
That's climatehealers.org.
.org. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
so we'll link to that in the show notes as well.
climatehealers.org.
Perfect. We'd like to thank you so much for your time today, sitting here, talking to us, explaining how the vegan world is going to change just as the internet did, and what an impact this is going to have on us and our children and our grandchildren's world. So thank you so, so much for all the work that you're doing and the time that you took here. We really do appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this edition of the Plant Trainers Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or any other podcast listening platforms. We appreciate the feedback we receive from you. Every time we get a 5-star rating or review on iTunes from one of our fans, it ensures other people will find us too. Thanks to our patrons. To become a patron, visit www.patreon.com/planttrainers. Even supporting us with $1 really makes a difference. Connect and follow us on Instagram and Twitter @PlantTrainers. Like Plant Trainers on Facebook, join our newsletter, and check out our website at www.planttrainers.com for awesome plant-based recipes and a list of our services. Email your questions to info@planttrainers.com so we can answer them on our upcoming Facebook Lives. We hope we've inspired you today. Join us again next time and have a healthy day.